Understand, when a new idea comes out, it is because somebody, let's take an example, HTML. You have a web technology like HTML, hypertext markup language. So HTML was successful, but then HTML doesn't allow you to incorporate any semantic content. So then it became XML. Now, evolution of computing and birth of grid computing and cloud computing. Okay, I'll tell you what it is. Basics of fog computing. What are the essential basics of fog computing and motivation for fog computing. Why are you motivated to go for fog computing? And what I consider as the three pillars of fog computing. There are three basic pillars on which fog computing rests, or what fog computing promises effectively deals with three pillars. Next. Details of fog networking. Sometimes people also call this fogging. And fog networking, actually I'll cover this in the afternoon session, but very briefly, fog networking and Internet of Everything. There is kind of a little bit of confusion there. Internet of Things versus Internet of Everything. Okay, and then cyber physical systems, a technology called as cyber physical systems, and fog computing. And how many of you heard of wireless sensor networks? Just raise your hands. So there are several of you. So I'm sure some of you would be knowing what is cyber physical systems. It's an umbrella technology which will encompass wireless sensor networks. Fog computing, analogy with the power grid. Okay, like how the power grid has some kind of a similarity with fog computing. Finally, we conclude the talk. Next. So how did computing evolve? Initially there were abacus, where you could do some, for a children, still abacus is there in some countries. So a child wants to add 2 plus 7, he has 2 beads, he has 7 beads, and somehow he kind of comes up with the answer number 9. So primitive computing gadgets. There are several primitive computing gadgets which have become very popular. Maybe when you are in 70s, there were some pocket calculators for making simple calculations. And primitive computer architecture. Okay, now from these basics, a lot of people, see, normally credit goes to the fellow who doesn't have a fictional imagination, but he was able to demonstrate some computing platform. So I'm sure all of you know that you have input, you know the typical diagram, you have an input, and you have a CPU, and you have some memory. Normally, the CPU is linked with memory here, and then you have the output. These are brief block diagram of a computer. See, normally, sometimes mathematicians compete with engineers for good ideas. So to be very proper, we must give credit to von Neumann. So von Neumann gave the idea of stored program computer. That is, you can store the program as well as the data, or you can store the instructions as well as the data in the same location, and you go fetch. Okay, now, so that was stored program idea by von Neumann, to store program and data in the same memory. Neumann was a very talented mathematician who made massive contributions contributions to engineering. His contributions to engineering included how to launch intercontinental ballistic missiles. So he was a very great mathematician, and also he contributed a lot to computing. Okay. He had several nice papers, and one of his papers dealt with what's called as probabilistic computing, and it was realized about 10 years ago. Next. So every computer normally has an instruction set for computer, and then initially when I was a summer intern at Indian Space Research Organization, Sriharikota, I was an intern there. Then they had what's called Micro 78 manufactured by ECIL. So if I have to run a program, suppose I have to run a program on a computer, go get cards, punch the cards, get a deck ready, go and give the deck, wait for a couple of one day or 2 days. After 2 days, if there is a bug in your code, remove that card and go and get a new card, give you a deck of cards. So it was largely time consuming. Then people said, can we somehow overcome this problem? Then they came up with what's called assembly language. So every microprocessor has an assembly language. Okay? Now, then came design of assemblers and design of cross assemblers. And does anyone in the audience know what a cross assembler is? You can run the assembly of some other machine on a different machine. So you write a cross assembler between that machine and the target machine. Okay. Then high-level programming languages, to start with Fortran, COBOL, and Pascal. Then all of you are familiar with C, C++, Java, Perl, some scripting languages, all sorts of programming languages came out. Okay, now the C++ was kind of a revolutionary idea of object-oriented programming. And Java, which had Java Virtual Machine, converts the code into a byte code, and that enables you to have a platform-independent programming language. Of course, Microsoft invested a lot of time in developing .NET, that is to enable a naive and a not so computer literate person to be able to write programs. Okay? So you can drag and drop. So, normally, please understand that engineering ideas, good ideas, which make a system better, requires you to understand what are the problems in the conventional design. Normally, most of the computers had a very large instruction set. One simple instruction is add register 1. There are so many cores available. So you are going for parallel computing. Next, please. Parallel computation. Now, see, normally, please understand that understanding theoretically an idea, understanding the theoretical idea versus actually building it. Suppose I want to build this, a remote. You can know the theory of how to build this, but when you start building, you begin to see the problems. So, the parallel computing paradigm was considered from many applications viewpoint. You have a large image and you want to do thresholding or you want to do segmentation. So you divide the large image into smaller sub-images and give them as the input to a parallel computer. So the kind of parallel computer that you use will be single instruction, multiple data, SIMD. Single instruction, multiple data. Multiple instruction, multiple data. data, MIMD. And in some part, we are coming back, interconnection network design. You have multiple of these processors. You want to interconnect them. And there are several nice ideas which evolve over design of interconnection network. And there were dedicated purpose processors. That is a given algorithm. I am sure most of you know that there is something called FFT, fast Fourier transform. Okay, it is not a transform, it is an algorithm to increase the speed of computation of discrete Fourier transform. Okay, so multi-core machines, and they are current parallel computing foundation. You have lots of processors available to you. Now the question is how to efficiently use all the processors. Next please. So evolution of computing, once again, dedicated purpose processors such as DSP processors or GPUs, graphical processing units. See, originally DSP processors were meant for signal processing applications, whereas the processors like Intel's Pentium processor, these were general purpose. See, the design of a special purpose processor takes into account what are the operations that are being repeatedly used. So digital signal process and graphics processing units. And these days, maybe past 5-8 years, how to use a GPU for a general purpose computation. They were massively successful. GPUs are increasing the speed by a very large factor. And field programmable gate arrays. That is, you have an array of programmable units and you can implement any logic circuit, particularly a combinational circuit on those kind of platform. Next. So then very quickly we'll go into evolution of networking. Now, in the case of evolution of networking, ARPANET, to be honest with you, there was a professor at one of the universities. What this professor did is, he had two computers. He connected them with a cable and he was able to send a packet of data from one machine to another machine. So in a crude form, it is the idea of computer network. How do we network computers? So ARPANET from Department of Defense, sometimes called Defense Advanced Research Projects, DARPA. So with the DARPA initiative, ARPANET became very popular. Then people said, can we have network in our labs within a small, okay. Now that gave rise to local area networking. Then we had wide area networking, namely the internet. And then we had personal area networks. You have networks in a small personal area. So, and you also know virtual private networks. So this is how networking evolves. And what I must say is, we have Internet Protocol version 4 to Internet Protocol version 6. So what does version 6 do? It has larger address space. And I'll come back to it in the afternoon. Next. So evolution of distributed computation. See, normally parallel computation and distributed computation have a certain difference. See, the distribution is they are distributed over a geographical area. So you have some kind of a grid structure to the network, which is a bunch of computers distributed over a large area. They are able to perform some common computation that is required. Computational resources are distributed, say geographically, and are connected to each other using a computer/communication network. So we have cloud computing, and if you ask for a definition, different people will give different definition of cloud computing. So it is an internet-enabled computing. Now, then actually, there is an Indian name, Rajkumar Bhuiya from Australia. His PhD thesis was on grid computing. See, normally the idea of grid is, we need electricity. When we need electricity, we could generate it locally within a small area, or we have an electricity grid. We have a transmission grid, we have a distribution grid, and we have a generation, power generation, and power distribution. So the idea of grid computing was personally one good idea, but it needed what was called as a grid broker. So even though the idea of cloud computing took off, it was grid computing idea which led to the birth of cloud computing. Then we now go into, all of you know cloud computing versus fog computing. We'll come to that in a minute. Next. In cloud computing, there is no unique definition. Different providers, service providers, different people give different names. Internet-based distributed computing. So you have an infrastructure as a service, maybe Microsoft, Google, Amazon, they have their computing facilities available at a data center. So using the resources available at a data center, you can download, you can get your job done. You don't need to, see very quickly, your college, suppose there is a college in a small village or a small town, and that particular college needs computing resources. So buying a lot of machines is kind of expensive. So you can get all those services, like you want to organize a conference. You don't want to buy these machines. How are you going to use them? So you can go to a cloud service provider. You can have platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service. See, buying a software may be very expensive. Okay, so software as a service, but cloud computing. What was the real missing link between cloud computing and fog computing? So I want all of you to pay attention to this. Cloud computing, to a certain extent, not totally, it ignored the quality of service constraints to some extent. Okay, that was where, see, listen, when you get a new idea, sometimes you put some notation. You get some notation. Somebody said cloud computing. So somebody will be wondering what is the usage of the word cloud, and then somebody says fog computing. Okay, now next please. So we know, so the time that I spent was, I personally feel it is worthwhile. You will have a kind of a brush up of computing basics, distributed computing, networking. Now we're really jumping into the real problem. So fog computing or fog networking or fogging, it is an architecture that uses one or a collaborative multitude of end user clients or near edge devices. That is, there are locally some resources, your local memories, you have local computing resources, you have local networking resources. So the idea is carry out a substantial amount of storage, unlike storage in cloud data centers. You have geographically distributed data centers. Instead of doing storage there, you store locally over the local resources. And communication, that is, rather than routing over the internet backbone. Normally in cloud computing, you are using the internet as backbone. And control, you want to control some devices, okay? Like, for instance, you want to control a hydroelectric project. If you want to control a hydroelectric project, you don't need to. You can use the local network to do the control. Configuration, measurement, and management, rather than primarily by network gateways such as those in LTE core. So, a lot of words there. The essence is, you want to do fog computing, you use local resources for storage, for communication, for control, and other such tasks, rather than relying on the internet backbone. Okay? So this must be clear to you. So, if you want to take one message from this lecture, here is essentially it is. Okay? Now listen. You can go to the web and type fog computing, you'll get a lot of material there. Next. Fog computing can be perceived in large cloud systems and big data structures, making reference to growing difficulties in accessing information objectively. So, the kind of idea of fog computing can be perceived in large cloud systems and big data structures. So the problem is, you have stored some material and you want to access the material. So there is a lot of delay involved. So the result is a lack of quality of the obtained content. So many times, the quality of the content that you are obtaining by storing remotely in the data centers is very poor, or if not the word very, it is poor. So you want to improve the quality of service. So the effect of fog computing on cloud computing and big data systems may vary, yet a common aspect that can be extracted is a limitation in accurate content distribution. So you want to distribute a content accurately, as much accurately as possible. So this is issue, so that means, let me take a small question. You have a computer network, let us say wired network, okay, or it could be wireless. Now, when you want to do routing, you use the shortest path routing. Now, so you use Bellman Ford or Dijkstra, okay? Now, what is the disadvantage of shortest path routing is that if everybody uses the shortest path, there is congestion on the path, there are other disadvantages. Suppose, for now, let's say, we were going for shortest path. So, as a data structure, you have a graph. In the graph, between every pair of nodes, there is a shortest path. So the worst case delay, the kind of worst case delay is the length of maximum shortest path. This is called diameter of a graph. There is a parameter called diameter of a graph. It is the largest shortest path between any two vertices. So you want to extract, why I said is, by this issue can be tackled by creation of metrics that can improve accuracy. Next. 3 pillars of fogging. So this is my idea. To be honest with you, after I finished my PhD, I had some interest in neural networks, motivated by a very real problem. I have written a book on neural networks called Multi-Dimensional Neural Networks, Unified Theory. See, in most living systems, there are three main functions: computation, communication, and control. In the fog computation slide, we had three things: storage, computation, control, and communication. So, to objectively explain this, you have a digital circuit which does some computation. And you have an encoder, you have a decoder useful in communication. And you have a control function. That is, you want to move an aircraft from one place to another place in the shortest time. So, three pillars are control, communication, and computation. End clients, so for those of you, sometimes fog computing is also called edge computing. It is computing at the edge of the network. So end user clients or near edge devices are utilized to carry out computation. That is, the devices which are at the end of the network, they are utilized to carry out computation rather than utilize servers in data centers only. So you have a bunch of servers in data centers. So instead of doing the computation in the data center, you are relegating the responsibility to local devices. Communication. Instead of utilizing the internet backbone, you have an internet backbone, local networking infrastructure is utilized to carry out computation. The local network could be a wired network. The local network could be a wireless network. In the afternoon, we come to this a little bit more clearly. Instead of doing the control using network gateways, the local infrastructure is utilized to perform control. So normally, if you go to cyber physical systems, we'll be entering into that in a minute. So what we are having is, we have an infrastructure. See, the point you must keep in mind, fog computing, if it is properly done, it may get down the cost of, when we went to cloud computing, we had infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, and so on. So when these local devices, the local computing devices, the local networking infrastructure, if it is properly used, cost could come down. Cost of doing computation on the internet can come down. Next. We have details of fog networking. It consists of a data plane and it consists of a control plane. There are two things. One is the control plane and the other one is the data plane. On the data plane, fog computing enables computing services to reside at the edge of the network as opposed to servers in data center. So I already explained this a little bit, but we put a word here. What is the word we put? We have data plane and control plane. On the data plane, fog computing enables computing resources to reside at the edge of the network as opposed to servers in data center. Then compared to cloud computing, fog computing emphasizes proximity to end users. See, the main difference is whatever you are trying to achieve by utilizing the cloud, what you are doing is you are doing it near to the edge of computation. So, unlike compared to cloud computing, fog computing emphasizes proximity to end users, client objectives, dense. So, there are some client objectives. So, listen. Suppose you need the computation in a very short time. Within the next hour I need. See, many times these computing tasks, they may come in real time. And your cloud may be too slow. That is, within the next 1 hour, I want these results. Okay. So suppose you are running some business and you want to run some business analytics. So, if you get the results after 3 hours, useless. So you want the result to come in a short time. Compared to cloud computing, fog computing emphasizes proximity to end users, client objectives, dense geographical distribution, and local resource pooling. You pool the local resources, latency reduction for quality of service. See, if you ask, if I have, let us say, an urgent computing task, and if you don't, or if you have not organized the local resources, more than likely you can't achieve your objective. So that's why we emphasize the word latency reduction for quality of service and edge analytics. That is, sometimes you are getting the data in a stream. So you want to do some stream mining, resulting in superior user experience and redundancy in case of failure. So like cloud also has some fault tolerance, but fog computing will enable you to get the quality of service, and at the same time it will also give superior user experience and redundancy in case of failure. Next. Fog networking, Internet of Things. So in the afternoon, we'll go over Internet of Things in more detail. So most of the devices that we use on a daily basis. So purposefully afternoon, I titled it as Internet of Things, and here it is Internet of Everything. So most of the devices that we use on a daily basis will be connected to each other. Examples include phones, wearable health monitoring devices, connected vehicles, augmented reality using devices such as Google Glass. Okay, so it's kind of amazing. I was talking to Krishna Chaitanya. He was telling me about augmented reality products. Unlike Google Glass, much more sophisticated augmented reality devices. So all your refrigerators, if the Internet of Everything vision materializes, you don't need to worry that the milk is not there in your refrigerator. So automatically when the milk gets exhausted, it will send a request and you automatically. So you go to a store, you just buy whatever you want and you generate a bill and you pay through your credit card, everything is done automatically. IBM prepared some kind of video. A lot of companies say, listen, if you really are interested in looking for problems, the kind of problems technology is Internet of Everything or Internet of Things. It will be revolutionizing the way we live and the way we conduct our businesses. Fog networking supports the Internet of Everything. Unlike cloud computing, it enables quality of service guarantees. So there are only few things that you can talk about. You have lots of issues there, but there are only a few things that can be discussed. Unlike cloud computing, it enables quality of service, latency reduction, meeting other end user objectives. So there may be several end user objectives which cannot be met by the cloud. If you just use the cloud, they may not be met. But if you use the fog computing, those end user objectives can be met. Next. Now here we take a little time to tell what cyber physical systems is. Most of you know what are called as wireless sensor networks. Okay. When you know what a technology of wireless sensor networks is, you sense, you wirelessly communicate the information to a base station, it will take some action and it will try to see if something is really going wrong. Suppose you have a temperature network, then it will be monitoring the temperature in a building or some organization. If the fire started, it will immediately give the indication to the control station or the base station, which will take necessary action. Another example is, you have wearable devices. That is, you have body temperature, blood pressure, humidity, blood pressure, and let's say ECG or EKG or EEG. So all sorts of sensors are integrated into a jacket. You wear the jacket, automatically it computes your body temperature, it computes your blood pressure, it takes your ECG. All this information can be remotely communicated to a doctor. So this is called as wireless body area networks. It's called as wireless body area networks. See, normally, please understand that coining a word may not be very difficult. Coining the word cloud, coining the word fog, or coining some other word. But sometimes, if you carefully read it, it will tell you what the whole thing is all about. So the word here in the technology is cyber physical systems. What are cyber physical systems? There is a physical world, let's say in the body area networks, human body, you have a physiological system, or let us say that you have such a number of bridges over, let us say, some river, Godavari or Krishna. Now, if there is a flood, or if the water level is exceeding the limits, automatically you want the gates to open up, so that you, instead of doing manual. Now, what you must come to a sense of understanding is that cyber physical systems involves two things. One is the cyber world, the other one is the physical world. It is an integration of cyber world with the physical world. Examples include wireless sensor networks, wireless body area networks, and many other systems. This technology is currently very hot. To give an indication, IIT Hyderabad has a project for 17 crores. Government of India invested 17 crores to do research on cyber physical systems, like robotics and many other things. So we have an integration of physical world and cyber world. For example, wireless sensor networks, wireless body area networks. Now, there are two important features of cyber physical systems. One is concurrency and the other one is temporal semantics. That is, any cyber physical system is an integration of processors which are concurrently progressing in time. You got your heart, you got your brain, concurrently they are generating some signal. So now the point is, when there are several concurrent systems, what we want to make sure is we are able to monitor all of them properly. We are able to understand what is happening to the concurrent systems. And if they are interconnected to one another, how do we control them? So these are the aspects of concurrency. And in computer science, most of you would have heard of concurrency control. It's a very difficult problem. It's kind of a difficult problem. So temporal semantics. So let me come to this point. Suppose you are writing a program for sorting a bunch of numbers. You want to sort a bunch of numbers. When you want to sort a bunch of numbers, you use some quick sort, merge sort, heap sort, some sorting algorithm. In design and analysis of algorithms, you have calculated the complexity, time complexity, space complexity, and communication complexity. How much delay is there? Now, suppose the program is order n log n. And let us say n is some 100 or 1000. So you know that the algorithm, when you code it into a machine, will take, let's say, 25 milliseconds. That is, you know ahead of time that this program will take exactly 30 milliseconds at the worst. Okay. Now, when you are designing a cyber physical system, it is very important that the computation gets finished, if not in 30 milliseconds, within 50 seconds, I want the result. Now, I formulate a problem which is not easy for computer science people. A lot of people are trying. I have designed it. See, if you are coding a sorting algorithm, you know the complexity. But suppose you are building a very large software system. You are building a very large software system. When you build a large software system, what's the problem? How much time it will take in the worst case? How much time it will take optimistically? And normally, currently what people do is, they do extensive testing of the software. They give some test cases and they calculate. So, normally, a lot of companies, when they attempt a problem like this, they do some empirical analysis. That is, they take real data, worst case scenario, and then they say, look, in the worst case, it will take this much time. What I am attempting at is some kind of theoretical model. In the case of sorting, you know exactly the algorithm. In the case of large software system, you have an interconnection of several modules, and you have to interconnect the modules. So when you interconnect the modules, what will be the worst case delay involved in getting the result? So theoretically, the problem is not totally solved, but there are several attempts by a lot of people. People are trying. So concurrency and temporal semantics. So the very word temporal means time, semantic, that is the result of computation, is useless if it is not completed in required critical time. Now, all of you studied to some extent wireless sensor networks. Now, unlike regular computer networks, let's do a little experiment. Here is one row, chairs. Let's say every chair is a sensor. And let's say we have 100 chairs in this room. Now, what happens is, if it were an ordinary computer network, suppose it was an ordinary computer network. Each chair is a node. It will receive the data, check the address, and forward. An ordinary computer network, it just checks the data and forwards. Now, in a wireless sensor network, suppose we want to compute the maximum temperature. In this room, what is the maximum temperature? Or in this building, what is the maximum temperature? Did it exceed, let's say, 80 degrees centigrade? If so, where? So these are the questions that are of interest in designing a wireless sensor network. Now, let's take this room. So If you are going to, suppose all of you send the data to me directly. Suppose you send some reading, you just send it. Now what I have to do at the base station is, I might have to sort all of them. Suppose we do a little trick. So sends it to the next girl. She compares. Suppose there are n nodes in a line. What will be the complexity of computing the minimum or maximum? N minus 1. In n minus 1 time step, you will get the answer. So the point that I wanted to emphasize was, you may know it, you may not know it. In wireless sensor networks, there is in-network distributed computation. Unlike other computer networks, you automatically do some computation within the network to understand whether something happened. Suppose my reading is more than 70 degrees. That means I know there is fire somewhere. I want to know where the fire is. So, in-network distributed computation. Next. Alright, so 5 minutes. 15 minutes are okay. Fog computing, analogy with the power grid. So, as I said earlier, grid computing is a version of cloud computing, which really didn't take off. Now, so when we have fog computing, what we are effectively attempting is, we want to first of all understand the local architecture of the available resources. That is, the resources that you have at the edge, they could be reconfigured. They could be configured dynamically to be able to do some computation. And they should be able to communicate with each other. So electricity grid, power generation and transmission analogy with provisioning of computing services. So what happens in an electricity grid? See, these days across the world there is intensive research on what is called as smart grid. It's called as smart grid. That is, you generate the electricity, either hydroelectric, nuclear reactors, or some other wind, solar, and so on and so forth. Now, once you generate the electricity, you want to have a transmission or distribution system. You have a transmission or a distribution system. So there is local power generation. So the closest analogy, the purpose of grid computing was to be able to provide computing, communication, and control resources through the use of a distributed computing network. That was the vision of grid computing. Now, increasingly what is happening is, some engineering colleges or some universities or some companies, they are putting solar panels on top of the roof. So they locally generate the electricity, and that locally generated electricity meets sometimes the local demands. See, the point that you must understand is, if you are generating electricity, let's say Srisailam or Nagarjuna Sagar, when you are sending that electricity over a large distance, there are losses. So some amount of electricity is going west. So the question that people were motivated is, can we generate electricity locally. So the analogy was, you had a grid which didn't take off, grid computing. You had cloud computing which took off and becoming a reality. But cloud computing does not meet end user objectives and quality of service constraints. So in case it doesn't meet, can we use the local resource? So that's why the title of the slide is Fog Computing, Analogy with the Power Grid. So local power generation through solar panels, and in some countries they are even talking of a power plant in every home. You have a power plant in every home. So, see, what's going to happen is, all your devices that are available locally, currently they are either underutilized or they are unutilized. So if the vision of fog computing takes off, if the vision of fog computing clearly takes off, then what's going to happen is your laptops, your desktops, your smartphones, all of these, they will be dynamically networked to each other to realize the end user objective. See, I'm sure if you are a visionary of what's going to happen, say I have a dumb phone. Some of you may have a smartphone. This smartphone sometimes has more capabilities than a computer 20 years ago. Your cell phone has the capability it has a lot more memory, it has a lot more processing power, and so on and so forth. So the smartphones and the local devices could be sensors, the local devices could be, let us say, laptops, they could be desktops, they could be smartphones, they will be integrated to one another to achieve some objectives. Now, to be honest with you, the concept of smart cities, the concept of smart homes. So a smart home, one demo I didn't bring today, but what we did was in our lab back in IIIT, we set up a bunch of sensors in the corridor. We set it up. Then we started fire in a remote location in the same building. And within a matter of few milliseconds, we have an alert saying that there is fire. So this demo we had was wireless fire control. Wireless fire control. So the vision of fog computing is the one where the local resources are capitalized. See, there are several issues. See, you must understand one thing. If you are really looking for starting your own company, or you are looking for an area where there will be a lot of interest, internet, broadband connectivity, you can do it. Now, remote power generation, and see the analogy with the power grid. See, normally, those of you who are teachers, whenever you want to explain a concept to your students, try to take analogies. And an analogy will stay in your mind a lot more time. So, the vision of fog computing as an analogy with the power grid. Remote power generation transmission analogy with fog computing. Next please. So, my brother, when I said fog computing, he knew, he heard of cloud computing. Then I said fog computing. Then he said, why not mist computing? See, you have cloud, fog, and you have mist. So, bottom line is the philosophy of fog computing and mist computing is ubiquitous computing, storage resources, and local network resources are totally underutilized. Currently, the local resources are either unutilized or underutilized. Okay? Now, such resources can be organized effectively to serve certain local communication, computing, control tasks. The fellow who came up with the idea, fog computing idea, somebody from Spain, somebody from a university in Spain, he first coined this word. He had the original idea. I believe the fellow's name is some Nemhauser. If you go to Google and type, that fellow's name is some Nemhauser. So what he really observed, see, normally sometimes good research ideas, they are based upon a clear observation of what is happening, and you take the idea forward. So such resources can be effectively organized to serve such a local communication, computing, and control tasks, from fog computing to mist computing. Okay, now you may give credit to me or my brother and you go pursue, like look, you can set up a blog on your let's say web platform talking about mist computing, but you have to tell what it is. How does it differ from fog computing? Okay. Now fog and mist computing, so you have to understand, fog computing is not totally outdating cloud computing. It complements the cloud computing. So fog and mist computing complements the existing efforts in operational cloud computing infrastructure. Sometimes you have a task which the local resources cannot handle. Suppose you want to analyze big data. You have a very big data and you have to analyze it. The local resources are not enough, so you have to go to the cloud to get your job done. You need some kind of a software which is not locally available, so you have to go to the cloud. So keep in mind, don't have incorrect understanding that fog computing is going to replace cloud. That doesn't do. It complements cloud computing. Next. So fog and mist computing potentially become commercial success. So to be honest with you, as I was talking to Krishna Chaitanya, Amazon started entering into cloud computing, and it currently captures, okay, and Microsoft has their own Azure. So what will happen is, these companies which are for Cisco is also interested in fog computing. So these companies, they are going to develop how to organize the local infrastructure in local resources or edge resources, to use the correct word, in such a way that they become commercial success. A lot of research needs to be conducted to realize the full benefits of fog and mist computing. So mist, fog, and cloud computing are essential enablers of Internet of Things. They will enable Internet of Things, particularly fog computing. It will play a very large role in realizing Internet of Things. Mist and fog computing are based on strong real-world practical motivation. That is, they are not some theoretical fancy ideas. They have real practical issues, and in practical issues, people conceived these ideas. They potentially will be realized in the years to come. So, to be honest with you, you can go to web, you can get some understanding. But, as I was telling in the inaugural function, you will have clear perspective of what is this technology is all about. But that doesn't mean you know everything about the technology. You will be hinted at some research issues. That is, keep in mind, your laptop, your smartphone, your desktop, they have to be reorganizable. That is the wireless network. Suppose they are wirelessly connected to each other, particularly laptop and which has Ethernet port and other things, Wi-Fi enabled devices. Now the point is, the challenge is, how do, when I get a real-time problem, real-time objective, how do I organize these local resources to communicate with one another and be able to achieve the objective? Okay, so I stop now, take any questions. Okay, now, yeah, mist computing. Yeah. You asked what is mist computing? So it is an issue of what do you call it as edge? What do you call as local resources? Now, in the fog scenario, okay, the local resources could be geographically distributed locally. Okay. Now, the way I would conceive mist computing is kind of organizing the resources in a lab. So, some kind of analogy you can take is, if you have a local area network, let's say in a computer lab, suppose you have a local area network, and suppose you have a campus-wide network. Okay, I would call campus-wide network to fit the analogy of fog computing, and the local area network within a room or within a lab as mist computing.
Any other persons?
Can I call fog computing as LAN of heterogeneous devices?
LAN of heterogeneous devices. You could call it. But hold on. It's much more than just a networking infrastructure. Okay, you have to have three things to enable it to be fit in the. You have to have in a LAN. You will have computing resources. You will have communication resources. You must also have some control resources. That is some kind of actuators. Suppose in case something goes wrong, suppose you want to monitor fire in a building, you must have control resources. If the control resources are integrated into a LAN, heterogeneous LAN, we could call it as fog computing.
You will stop here and look for lunch.
That is, at the end of the day, if these things need to be connected to one another, there will be some architectural. How do you connect them? What is the best way of connecting them? Next. Security in IoT. Security in the Internet of Things is perhaps the most significant challenge, and ensuring security in IoT must be a fundamental priority. All said and done, if this technology is going to be misused, you want to minimize the probability that a misuse can happen. Until that time, you can, that's why we call it as a fundamental priority. Until you can give a reasonable guarantee, the technology will not take off commercial. It may take off in small labs, but it won't take off commercial. Poorly secured IoT devices and services can serve as potential entry points for cyber attack and expose user data to theft by leaving the data streams to be inadequately protected. So it will spell out what are the things that will happen. Poorly secured devices, they will be the potential entry points for a cyber attack. And they can expose the user data, like these days, multimedia data, audio, video, textual data, all data can be sent. You have voice over IP, you have TV over IP. These are currently already available. So the proliferation of poorly secured devices also has the potential to impact the security and resilience of the internet globally. See, why I am emphasizing, when I prepared this presentation, I was kind of trying to think of what are the things. I used some resources on the web. Look, I don't like to give the impression that all the material came out of my mind at a short notice. I used the material from the web, but I'm presenting it in a manner where you can understand the issues. You get a good starting point, and if you want to see, there are three things. You can realize a IoT application in your university or in your lab. And you can also think of problems like, how do we partition the address? My gut feeling is, what will happen, my gut feeling is, each country possibly will be given some address space. And they possibly will be told how to use that address space, because 2 power 128, terribly huge number. Now, proliferation of poorly secured devices also has the potential to impact the security and resilience of internet globally. That is, if you can hack in once into some country's network, maybe you can hack in all over the world. So, if you can do it locally, and if everything is connected to one another, things are connected, then the problem has multiple repercussions. Next. In order for IoT to be successful, users will need to trust the devices and related data services are secure from vulnerabilities, especially as this technology becomes more pervasive and integrated into our daily lives. Saying the same thing in a different manner. Basically, so IoT has to be successful. We have to trust the devices and the services and secure from vulnerabilities as the technology becomes more pervasive. Simple examples are, I'm sure in your lab students can do this. I want to spoof her IP address. So I can send a message to somebody just mimicking her. So this is called spoofing attack. And spoofing attacks are currently done very routinely. So how do we prevent spoofing attacks from happening? And denial of service attacks. I'm sure most of you know that in case of denial of service attacks, you kind of flood a particular node or particular device with lots of packets so that you deny the service from that. Next. Evolution and status of IoT. While many unanswered questions remain, the fact is that Internet of Things is happening now and it will happen. Otherwise, we will not be sitting in this room discussing the possibility of Internet of Things. It will become reality. So all the concerns, challenges that we are thinking of can be overcome. More IoT devices are being put into service every day. lots of countries all over the world are investing in building IoT devices. So the Internet Society brought out a white paper which aims to raise the level of discussion around the issues and challenges identified while acknowledging the evolving landscape. That is, if you go to web, there is a place where you can send your inputs to the Internet Society, informing what is happening here. That is the issues and challenges identified while acknowledging the evolving landscape. So you can give your feedback. If you Google Internet Society, then you will get links to the place where you can give in your inputs. Next. So the role of Internet Society in the realization of IoT. Internet Society believes that if we take informed engagement, dialogue and collaboration across a range of stakeholders to plot the most effective ways forward to maximize the benefits of IoT and meet its challenges. So Internet Society is encouraging the dialogue. See, it's a very simple game. Each company, each multinational will be interested, what is the stake I have in this? If I develop products or services, how can I capitalize them? See, already some innovations like Facebook or WhatsApp or Snapchat, see, all these applications are possible because you have the social networks all over the world. If we collaborate together, the Internet of Things can play a significant role in enabling the Internet of Opportunity we all seek. So the point is, it's not one man's game or one company's show. A lot of stakeholders have to collaborate with each other, understand the challenges and try to solve them. At the end, Internet of Things will realize benefits for individuals, society and economy. So all sorts of applications are possible with Internet of Things. Next. Okay, so I'll spend a little time here. Technology is realized along with Internet of Things. In the morning we discussed fog computing, of course complementing cloud computing, big data organization and analytics. I'm sure if those of you who have spent time on big data, you know Hadoop framework for storage, and it is a distributed file system, and you possibly have heard of what's called MapReduce. You map the problems onto parallel machines and you do the reduction, so you do the computing over the MapReduce application. So normally the kind of data that we are receiving is not only textual data, but we have the audio data and video data. So the technologies that will complement Internet of Things is audio and video databases. That is, how do you store audio data? How do you query audio data? How do you query image data? And some of you worked in this area. The original idea is annotation. But annotation, soon people realize it's not such a good idea. So people have moved to the idea of content-based image retrieval. That is, you retrieve the images that are relevant to you based upon the content. So the solutions are not final. There is a lot of scope for research in multimedia databases. And I told you in the morning about cyber physical systems, which will be integrated with the future internet. 5G and other advanced cellular networks As I already told you, the data rates that are possible will increase by very huge factor, and that will enable one to connect more number of things to the internet. Smart areas such as smart spaces, smart cities, smart districts and smart states. So you are limited by your imagination. If you want to have a smart city, then there will be lots of technology challenges, such as you have some geographical information about different entities like hostels, hospitals, let us say hotels and other things. So using the internet, you want to be able to find out the information and use that information. I am sure some of you would have understood a technology called cognitive radio. So cognitive radio is a technology that will increase spectrum utilization. So in the case of cognitive radio, the available spectrum which is licensed is not the monopoly of the primary user, but the secondary user can use the spectrum when the primary user is not using it. So all said and done, if we want to have the connectivity, the available spectrum needs to be efficiently utilized. Local cognitive radio is an idea which was proposed, and 15 years of research, people are still working on it. What we propose in one of our patent application is what's called global cognitive radio. So the quickest way to explain this is, suppose you have a radio station, let's say Vivid Bharati, and 102.8 megahertz, Vivid Bharati makes transmissions from 6 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock in the night. But from 11 o'clock in the night till 6 o'clock in the morning, that spectrum is not utilized. So if we can afford to use the available, see, it is not cognitive radio, it is opportunistic spectrum access. You want to opportunistically access the spectrum. So in the case of cognitive radio, the issue is when the primary user is still present, how do we efficiently use the spectrum? So some innovative ideas in enabling an efficient spectrum utilization will be very, very useful. Software-defined networking, namely software switches, routers, this is becoming very, very popular across the world. Software-defined networking. So finally, why fog computing? Cloud computing does not totally address the utilization of local resources such as memory, processors, local networks to meet the quality of service constraints required by some application. So we tried discussing in the morning, we are pretty much clear that cloud computing does not totally address the utilization of local resources, and it does not provide quality of service guarantee. Sometimes computed or communicated result is useless unless it meets say a delay constraint. Thus, we are led to fog computing, dealing with organization of local resources to meet the QoS requirements of applications. Okay. So, fog computing and quality of service measures for IoT-based applications. For instance, the computational speed, the software and hardware limitations. It may be due to cost. We could deal with organization of computing nodes. Communication constraints such as delay. Security and privacy offered. So sometimes if we use cloud computing, relatively it may be more insecure than using the local resources to meet the local demand. Also, another issue is optimal and reliable control of cyber physical systems. So as I said in the morning, the technology of wireless sensor networks is one example of cyber physical system. So we want to be able to optimally and reliably control the cyber physical system. Other issues in the design of Internet of Things, mainly misuse of IoT and misuse of fog computing by malicious users, integration of various wired and wireless and other type of networks with future Internet. How do you do the integration? That is coexistence of heterogeneous network technologies. Lots of people have their stake in realizing IoT. Then we conceived of something called as doubly cognitive network architecture. Typically, at least some of you possibly heard of cognitive radio. That is, if a band is licensed to a primary user, the secondary user can use it when the primary user is not using it. So that's the brief, quickest explanation of cognitive radio. Typically, cognitive radio involves what's called spectrum sensing. What people typically did was to do the spectrum sensing without taking into account the historical data of traffic in some bands. So what we proposed in our research, what's called doubly cognitive network architecture. That is, when you do the spectrum sensing, you do an intelligent spectrum sensing by taking into account the historical traffic and prediction of the bands where there will be a lot more traffic than the bands where there will be less traffic. So next generation hybrid network, fiber optic backbone and millimeter wave networks. This is what I explained. You will have a fiber optic backbone and you will have small cells using millimeter wave communication system. Now, the software design issues are sometimes things like real-time operating systems, time criticality of various software systems. So, as I said in the morning, time criticality is a very important factor. If you designed a piece of software for software system for a application like CPS, if you cannot give time constraints on getting the decision, then your software is really useless because it doesn't meet the time criticality issues. So fog computing and IoT, availability of large number of underutilized or sometimes unutilized end-user devices in home, universities, etc., and their coordination to serve the local IoT application, namely fog computing. Fog or edge computing, upgradability of amount of storage as per demand, and upgradability of computing resources as per need. So, you are not totally relying on the cloud. You can locally upgrade your computing resources and you can also upgrade the storage requirements. Typically, household devices such as smartphones, laptops, desktops, and Wi-Fi routers, all of this will come into play when you are realizing fog computing. Like smart grid, with household power plant, we envision a computing grid. So this is a kind of vision that we try to achieve. Last.